Hey y'all, welcome back to MgM. Today we're going to paint up a Soviet tank from the Bolt Action line. And I'm going to quickly show you why you should never have a gray plastic tank on the table. These things are so easy to paint up. Today we will be using Vallejo paints. I tend to go to those for my World War II paint schemes. And we start with a spray of Vallejo hobby paint. This is the Russian Green 4BO. To my knowledge, Vallejo has renamed the paint to Camo Olive Green, which is number 894. That caused some confusion for me, and I had to do some research to find out that the 4BO color has been replaced by the Camo Olive Green. If you choose not to use the spray paint, that's the color that you want to use. I would suggest priming black and then just going over it with a brush. I decided to use the rattle can to get a very quick base coat down, and the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going in with some Army Painter Dark Tone. This is a wash, and I'm just going to give this a quick once over to tone down that green. This will serve two purposes. One, to get into the recesses and bring out some detail, and two, it'll give us a darker green to build some color back up to. You could also use Nuln Oil from the Games Workshop line or any other manufacturer as you see fit. So grab a big brush and just quickly work your way around the model. You're going to want to give this plenty of time to dry, and then we're going to go back in with that Cam Olive Green from Vallejo, and we're going to give this a dry brush. And what this is going to do is leave the black shade that we just put down in the recesses, and it will bring the tank back up to the color that we want. If you're more experienced with this technique, this is where you can build volumes by leaving some of the color that the wash has toned down and kind of going over the top of this and kind of building up some color as you move up the tank. For me, I just kind of put it on, and invariably you're going to have places like this on the front where the wash has kind of pooled and left a stain. You can just work that a little bit harder, bringing that up, and we'll definitely get rid of that with the next highlight color that we use by a dry brush. I have found it is easy to kind of poke the paint on as well and then wipe it as I am doing, and that really helps get rid of some of the areas where it is pooled. This step just takes a few minutes, and we're going to be painting this entire tank in about 20 minutes minus drying times. Once complete, we've got a nice even coat where we've kind of highlighted this tank back up, and you can see some of the shade or wash in the recesses, and that's really what we're going for. This helps us avoid what's called a pen wash, where you are applying the wash directly to places that you need it. The next color that we are going to go with is Vallejo Reflective Green, and we are going to do the same thing here with a bit of a lighter hand and kind of working our way more towards the top. But we're going to give another dry brush to the tank with Reflective Green, and this will help us kind of build up a little bit of volume. The method is the same as last time and should just take a few minutes to give this a quick dry brush. As a note, that splotch on the front where the wash had pooled, this color easily wipes that away. Now for the greens, I'll be stopping here, but I did want to show some 15mm Soviet tanks that I painted up previously. I did go in with some Russian green on these, and it gives them a very vibrant green color. I didn't know how that would look at this scale, so I decided to stop here, but you could continue to take this up to another green if you wanted to, and if you did, I do recommend the Russian green that I just showed from Vallejo. Alright, let's get in and paint the tracks. For this I use Vallejo German Gray, and I do water this down pretty well so it easily flows into the cracks and the nooks and crannies. That's important here because if you're trying to just paint it on regularly, it's going to take you way longer. Add a little more water to it and just let it flow. This next step is totally optional, but we are going to apply the decals at this point because any weathering that we do, we want the decals to blend in. So I'm going through with some gloss varnish right here. This is from Vallejo. I'm adding that to where the decals are going to go in a pretty big spread. I've got the decals cut out and ready to go, and you're going to get a 2-in-1 on this video because I'm going to show you the secret behind decals as well. I'm just simply getting my paper towel wet, and I will put the decals on there, and then I will soak them in water, and I just will put the water on to where it's just pooling onto the decals, and I'm going to let that sit for a few minutes and just continue to work it around with my brush to see when they're ready. You'll know that the decal is ready when you put your brush on the decal and it begins to slightly move around, and you can see that transfer moving around here. I'll quickly go back to the tank and apply some microset, and I'll put some links down in the description for these. This is totally awesome when you're using decals, the microset and the microsol, but I will use the microset where I want the decal to go. This will help it slide around a little bit, and for this one I'm just going to slide the transfer off and onto the tank. I will dip my brush into the microset and use that to kind of brush around and move the transfer around to its final position. Remember, if your transfer is being kind of sticky, you don't want to mess with it too much because it might rip, but you can use the microset to continue to dab it on there, and it will allow you to move that transfer around eventually, just like it was coming off the paper. Sometimes it just needs to sit and soak for a minute. But once it gets to its final position, just use a cotton bud and just simply start in the middle and roll off to the side so it is taking out that excess moisture and flattening that transfer down. I will quickly repeat this on the other side. Now you may notice that there's a little bit of shine there from the gloss varnish that we use. Don't worry, because at the end we're going to give this a matte finish and it's going to make all of this blend together. And with that complete, we're going to move on to weathering the tank. And to start with, I grabbed some Vallejo Mahogany Brown. I'm just going to go around the tracks and around the wheels and kind of just give this a dirty or dingy kind of look, like it's been going through the dirt and mud. I push this paint into the nooks and crannies. I get the front and back of the tracks as well. You can really go nuts with how much you weather a tank. The next thing I do is I grab one of these paint markers from AK Interactive. You could easily use a silver paint if you wish, and you could dry brush this on, but this just gives me a little more control. This is their aluminum color, I believe, and I just go through and kind of give some random highlights to the tracks. It's like you could see some metal showing through. I did a full review of these paint markers on the channel previously, so if you'd like any information on that, just feel free to check that video out. Next, I'm going to go in with Vallejo Iraqi Sand, and I'm going to give the entire tank a very light edge highlight dry brush of this color, kind of getting the highest pieces of the tank, making it look weathered, making it look dusty. I tend to use this color in just about every painting video I use, no matter what I'm painting. Vallejo Iraqi Sand is one of my favorite colors, especially for this finishing highlight step. You'll see that it really makes the edges of the tank pop and just really brings out a lot of detail. And if you happen to throw on too much, don't worry about it. I mean, it's all weathering, and really you can go back in with any green you wanted to and cover it up anyway. Here you can really see those edges pop out, and it's important to apply it against the grain or against the edges to get them to stand out like that. Now this is exactly why we put our decals on earlier, is because we're going to go through and do the same thing here, and the purpose of this is to help those decals weather and blend in a bit more with the turret. I do like to assemble the turret and give this kind of a very light once over with the Iraqi sand, again, just to help things kind of blend in a little further. At this point our tank's looking pretty good, but we do want to take care of the shine on those decals. So I am going to go ahead and hit this with a matte varnish at this point. I took the miniature outside and gave it a really quick blast with a spray can, and I came back in, and you can tell that that decal has now blended in, and we're going to weather it in a little further. Grab a piece of foam that you've probably picked up somewhere in your hobby journey. You do want to hold on to a little bit of these. Dip it in your cam olive green, and then just go around, especially where the decal is, and just kind of splotch that on there, and it will further weather that in. I will continue doing this with the German gray from Vallejo that we used earlier, just randomly moving around and putting some weathering on the tank. This color can resemble some paint chips and just overall wear and tear where the crew would be moving around or the tank would be hitting things. I'm going to go in one more time, this time with Vallejo Beige Brown. You could use the Mahogany Brown that we used earlier, and I'm going to do the same thing. This time I'm going to go around just randomly sponging on some of this color just for some dirt and some mud, grime, that kind of stuff that has just been collecting on the tank. You can go as far as you want to with this. If you wanted to add in some streaks, I know AK Interactive makes great products, but I have a tough time getting them here in the US. So I do use the Army Painter Soft Tone, just going around and putting some streaks around on the tank for some very subtle weathering. Once your weathering is done, your tank is complete and ready for the table. You could consider hitting this with another matte varnish if you wanted to. For me, I just considered mine to be good to go. I really hope you enjoyed this painting video. Some key points from it is that there are two different colors if you use the spray, the Russian 4BO from Vallejo, as well as the Cam Olive Green. Those two do color match. I have tested this out. If you wanted to take this up another color, consider the Russian Green from the picture that I showed earlier, and then apply your decals before you do all of your final weathering. Using this technique, you should have this tank painted up in under 30 minutes, depending on how much you like to weather. Hey, thank you so much for watching the video. Supporters Club, your names are on the screen now. Really appreciate your support. It's by no means necessary. If you've watched the video this far, you've done more than enough to support the channel, so thank you so much. We will see you in the next one. Take care.